professionals working to bring science from the laboratories to the public space. We are privileged to have the opportunity to talk to some young scientists and researchers as they share bits and pieces of their research work with us. Let's first meet Ralph Acker. He's a herbal medical officer. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Now, tell us about bitters. It's a ubiquitous word in Ghana. It is one of the most popular Ghanaian-made products. Are we safe patronizing this product?
Oh, okay. Thank you very much for the opportunity. The question, are we safe, depends on the context at which we are looking at bitters. And generally, bitters are, as is defined, it's supposed to be an alcoholic extraction of plant products. Normally, could be coming from the leaves, barks, or the roots of plants. And initially, when this whole preparation started, the plant product that they used tasted bitter. So that's where the name bitters came from. Yes. So basically, that is how bitters, that is the general definition of bitter. So, I mean, the question could come that, is it useful, the usefulness of bitters? And as I said, you know, the first bitters that was popularized was once upon a time, Swedish bitters, which was made by a Swedish physician who formulated it, including about almost 9 different herbs that he prepared with an alcoholic extract, and he used in the management of patients with constipation. And it became popular because people began to enjoy it, they used it, and that started the Swedish the bitters business. Then people started, I mean, also producing bitters.
What did they use it for?
Basically, they were using it as a digestive aid.
Digestive aid.
That's helping with digestion. Normally, anything bitter helps, like the liver produces a lot of digestive juices, that's bile, and other organs also produces digestive juices to help for digestion.
So how come in Ghana, bitters is more associated with libido?
Yes.
And sexual activity rather than...
Yes, that's a good question. When we talk about bitters, it doesn't necessarily mean that it should contain plant product that helps with digestion. Libido enhancing, it could become an aphrodisiac, basically. So depending on what plant product you use, will also depend on the usefulness of the bitters in question. Yes, so basically that is the usefulness, but initially it was as a digestive aid, but now people are, I mean, you know, sex cells, so people are rather going into that. Yes, so basically that is it. And we are looking at, since you asked of the usefulness, we also talk about the side effects, which is now, we have to look at it. And when we talk about side effects of bitters, basically it's made out of alcohol. It could be made up of 10% alcohol, 20% alcohol, or even 40% alcohol. When we talk about 40%, that means 60% water, 40% alcohol. So the alcohol content of these products also can have effect on your body. I mean, in the system, that is having, I mean, it blurs your judgment. It can affect your liver. I mean, I'm talking about the alcohol, because alcohol in the long term has effect on the liver. So these are some of the side effects that we tend to get. And depending on the type of preparation that is within the bitters, will also have its own effect on the body. So generally, the question could come as, are we safe?
So just before you address that, so we shouldn't be worried about the percentage of alcohol we imbibe as we hope to get the usefulness of the plant extracts.
We should be.
Wouldn't that constitute a side effect as well?
Yes, it's also possible that it will contribute to the side effects.
What would you recommend as a reasonable alcoholic percentage level?
Well, alcoholic percentage, well, people talk about 4%, 5%, even we have 1%. But at the end of the day, the higher the percentage, the higher the field is able to extract the components. So would they rather go in for, I mean, and we were saying that there's something like, instead of you drinking just plain alcohol, rather take a bitter because it could contain some plant products which will help you.
Right.
That's how come people are now pushing towards that. Yes, and one important thing I need to make mention of is the fact that now, you see, most of these bitters, the container in which they keep them, or the bottles, actually is supposed to be glass. If you look at most of these imported bitters, they are in glasswares.
Is there a particular reason why that is the case?
Yes, the alcohol is an organic compound. I mean, let me use that word. That's the best word I can get.
By which you mean what?
The organic compound.
Yes.
Organic compound is a natural, let's say, to the layman, a natural product found in, like a natural organic. It's
found in its natural state from the environment.
Yes, with that, it's not synthetic, more or less.
Right.
Yes. So, like Akweteshi is an organic compound. So basically, which is an alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
So, as I said, as an organic compound, it's capable of reacting with the container in which it comes. It's stored in.
Right.
Yeah. So when you put it in glass, it's not likely to react with that. But nowadays, because of maybe costs and people trying to also make profit, they put it in these plastic containers. Most of these bitters, and over time, some of these components in the plastic bottles tend to leak into the bitters, which we call phytates, as in phytates. So recently, research was conducted, and they sampled about 10 bitters on the Ghanaian market, and they realized that the level of phytates in them were that high.
The phytates don't have any medical uses for the human body?
Well, the medical use is on the negative side. Because it is talked about like its effect on cancer, like it's carcinogenic.
It can cause cancer.
It can cause cancer, more or less.
Wow.
And also its effect on the human reproductive system. It's also something that we need to look at. So it is not something that.
What does it do to the human reproductive system as we wrap this up?
Well, from that research, it causes low sperm count.
Low sperm count.
Yes.
So whilst the idea would be to take bitters to increase libido,
yes,
you are likely to come out with a low sperm count.
Yes, based on that research report, which I can provide afterwards.
Wow.
So that is something we need to look at. And basically, all the product sample on the market, most of them are in these bottles. And the other thing too is that per the FDA laws, whichever products that you produce, be it food or alcoholic drink, you need to state the components. But interestingly enough, all these products that were sampled didn't contain any constituent. I don't know whether they wanted to keep their trade secret, but that also couldn't inform us, the consumers, of the components for us to be able to be aware whether, this is okay for me or not.
No. So you have been in the lab doing the work and you have the knowledge. What would you say to the ordinary consumer who is only interested in whether or not he or she can pay the price for what he or she wants?
If I understand the question, basically,
should we or should we not patronize bitters, especially those in plastic containers?
We have to really be wary. We look at it, and be very careful, because the reality is that I'm just telling you that the reality paper, the research work that was done, the phytates which were in the plastic bottles leaked into some of these things. So, I'm just leaving you to judge from.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Aka. And so, for those of you watching, we are not safe if we fail to use the knowledge that is from the labs, which we are privileged to be bringing to you in the public space. Next, let's meet Daniel Anopa, a pharmacist, who is going to talk to us about drug-drug interaction, by which he means there are certain combinations of drugs that may be harmful when you take it in some particular order. But let's leave him to do the explanation as we listen.
Thank you. I'm just going to do a simple demonstration of what we witness in the pharmacies and in the hospitals. Usually, when you are sick, you go to a hospital and you're given medication or prescription. You go to the pharmacy and you have some instruction. These instructions are to help you take your medication and get the desired effect from this drug. One common drug that we often hear pharmacists give instruction about is ciprofloxacin. In short, we call Cipro. In this demonstration, I want to just clarify why we tell you in the pharmacies that when you are giving Cipro, you should avoid taking hematinics, or in simple terms, blood tonics or iron preparation, and also multivalent cations such as calcium preparations, magnesium preparations, aluminum preparations. So I'm going to do a simple demonstration. So what I have here in this plastic bottle I've labeled as Cipro is a tablet of ciprofloxacin that I dissolved in water and I have filtered so that is devoid of any impurities. There are no precipitates, there are not chelates in them. Also, I have another component in this plastic bottle I've labeled as blood tonic. I just don't want to mention any particular brand because any blood tonic that contains these ions or heavy metals can react with the Cipro. The first demonstration I'll go straight ahead is between this Cipro and then the blood tonic. When you have ciprofloxacin in this test tube and you add just a few drops of blood tonic, this is what happens. You see the whole solution becoming cloudy. What has made this solution become cloudy is the formation of precipitates. These precipitates, when I allow this to stand for about 2-3 minutes, you see it settling. What happens is that you need this Cipro to be available in your bloodstream to give you the desired cure you want from your medication. But when you take this drug together with these blood tonics, you don't get the desired effect. What happens is they form lumps, they clump together, they form precipitate, they form aggregate in the stomach, and they pass through the GIT, not going into the bloodstream, so you not get the desired effect. So we always recommend that when you want to take these drugs together, it's not prohibited, but there is a time frame. When you take the ciprofloxacin first, you have to wait for at least 2 hours before you can continue to take the blood tonic. When you forget and you take the blood tonic, it is recommended that you wait for 6 hours before you take the Cipro. So which one is the best? It's better you take Cipro, you wait for about 2 hours before you take the blood tonic. So this is what happens when you take Cipro and then blood tonics together. The next will be a simple demonstration with the same Cipro and then antacid or any multivalent ion preparation. What happens is when you take Cipro and then you also take any antacid or cation preparation, that is what I mean by antacid is that when you are taking any drug that will prevent high acid secretion in your stomach, or when there's high acid secretion, it will calm you down. Sometimes you are there, you are having burning sensation in your stomach, you feel like you have abdominal pains, you have stomach pains and all that. You go to the pharmacy, go to a chemical shop, you tell you go and take drugs like aluminum preparation like Aludrox, Gin, Magacid, Malox. Number of these multivalent ion preparations, when you take them together with Cipro, this is what happens. There's going to be a formation of precipitates. So they will also precipitate the Cipro out. And you see you have a clear solution. What you are seeing is that the Cipro and this multivalent ion, this one contains magnesium and aluminum, they form complex. So this one will stay in your stomach, the Cipro will not get into your bloodstream, and it will eventually be excreted without you getting the desired cure. So this practice should also be abolished. You can of course take these two drugs together, but it follows the same principle like the blood tonic. You take the Cipro, you wait for about 2 hours before you take these ion preparations or cation preparation, that is any of the antacids, either tablet or suspension. If you forget and you take the antacid, please do your best to wait for about 6 hours before you take the Cipro. And I always recommend you take the Cipro first before you take the antacid. The next is, I've been talking about,
Just before you go on to your next experiment, can you unpack a few things for us? I heard you talk about precipitates. How would you explain that for a peasant like me who has no idea?
Okay, as we stand, we are standing singularly, individually, but when we come together, we form a lump or aggregate. So the drug, instead of them going into the blood and acting accordingly, they rather come together. They become bulky. They can't pass through the tissue. They can't go into the bloodstream, and they won't give you the desired cure you want.
So they don't work.
They don't work. Even if you get some component getting into the blood, it will be a very little amount. And if it's organisms you are treating, there's a danger, because the organisms will be exposed to just little amount of the drug, and eventually they will develop resistance. They will have the strength to withstand the effects of the drug.
In other words, if it were two people fighting, then it will be a case of one punching beneath his weight, so that the blow isn't effective.
Yes.
I also heard you mention GIT. What's that?
GIT, basically, I'm talking about from your esophagus down to your stomach, to your intestines, to your colon. So from this area, we have drugs being absorbed, food being absorbed at different stages, getting into your bloodstream to get the desired effect. But when the drug is supposed to go through your stomach, and you take these two together in the stomach, they won't go. And then it will be passed through the stomach to the small intestine. And if the drug is not supposed to be absorbed at that stage or taken to the blood at that stage, you won't get the desired effect. And there are drugs that will also have to go through the intestine, but when you take these two together, they will pass through the intestine without they getting through the intestine into the system.
Right. Now, it has always been my understanding that antacids are used to clear gas from the system. Is that right?
It's part of their function.
Okay.
Because as part of the preparation, you have different components that help in breaking down the formed gases and then clearing them.
Right. Now, just reconcile this for us before you go on to your next. You say that if we take the antacid, we should wait 6 hours, or if we take the Cipro, we should wait 6 hours before we take the antacid. What if you've been given the dose, say you take it 3 times a day, such that if you were to wait 6 hours, you be due for another dose? How would you unpack that?
That is where I'm stressing on this point. So if you are supposed to take these two drugs together 3 times in a day, which means in a day 24 hours, you have 8-hour interval, so 8 hours. The best practice is that maybe early in the morning around 6, even before you eat, you could take your Cipro. You wait for about 2 hours, you take your meal, that's around 8. Then you can take your antacid after 30 minutes or 1 hour afterwards. Then you can go on around 2, you can take the next dose in similar line. But if you forget and you take the antacid first, it's always difficult following it and taking your drug at the right doses.
Very well.
And the final thing I want to demonstrate is that as I'm using Cipro, somebody may be there saying that, oh, then I'll go for herbal medicine and take the iron preparation. I just want to demonstrate to you that the herbal medicines too will give you similar effect if you take them with either the antacid or the iron preparation. So I'll just do this final demonstration, then I will end with
Take
this.
it away, sir.
So this is a herbal formulation made from leaves. And what happens is, if you have this herbal formulation and you take any iron preparation, that's blood tonic, you are going to have precipitates being formed. And if you look carefully, you can see some precipitates getting down there. And that is what happens. The iron in this effect, if you are treating anemia, that is if you have low blood level in your system, you will not get your iron being replenished and you will not get more red blood cells being generated. So you will be the required effect. So this is what I have for you. Make sure you do follow your drugs. If you want to take any drug with either antacid, iron preparation, take the drug, wait for about 2 hours before you take it. But if you take the iron preparation or the antacid, wait for about 6 hours before you take it. Other than that, you will not get the desired effect. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anokla. So you've heard it all. Just be sure that you are doing the drugs in their right combinations so that they will be effective. Otherwise, you will be pouring money down the drain. Next, we are meeting Dr. Temi Tope Sugbami. She's an environmental toxicologist. She's going to talk to us about pollutants. Hello, Doc.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah.
So what are you demonstrating today?
Yeah, so today we want to demonstrate the effects of activities such as dumping waste into drainages, into open gutters and all of that, and how that can affect the free flow of water, and which when we have very high torrential rains can actually lead to flooding, and it can also lead to other health effects. And that's what we'll be demonstrating.
Right, take it away, madam.
Yes. So hello everyone. So I have my colleague here. We just want to do a very simple experiment to show how when water flows through naturally, through open drains and gutters, they are actually able to go to different surface waters and underground. However, when we deposit waste like papers, tissues, stones, fuel. I'm not demonstrating fuel today because I don't have any PPE. But I mean, we use this sachet waters, bottled water like I have here. Gradually, this would actually clog the waterways. Can we have some water, please? This will actually clog the waterways. And when we have very high torrential rains, particularly during seasons like this, where we're in the rainy season, in the tropical area of Africa, we have basically the wet and dry season. And during the wet season, so when you have very high rainfall and you have all these in these drains, you actually see that some of the water does go, but because of the dirt there, it actually overflows sometimes. And we've actually had cases of this flooding in areas like Lagos, even here in Ghana. And another thing I want to talk about with this waste, apart from the fact that they block the free flow of water, that's fine, thank you. These wastes are also harbingers of pathogens. So the wastes are there in the gutters, they stay over time. Some of them actually biodegrade depending on the nature of the waste. And biodegrade means that it decays over periods of time. But because they are there, where they're not supposed to be, they're actually supposed to be in dumps, they are actually harbingers of parasites like malaria vectors like mosquitoes, and some other ones that cause water-related diseases. Those things that cause us to go to the hospital when we have diarrhea. And another thing is that some of these wastes also leach into our groundwater, particularly when you have liquid waste like maybe used fuel or used engine oil and you pour directly into the gutter without treating. Some of these can actually get into our underground water, and these waters, when drunk or when we use for certain activities, can actually contaminate us and even cause dermal toxicity. And by dermal toxicity, I mean that you can actually have effects on your body, as a result of this. So what are we saying? We need to unclog our drains. We need to unclog our gutters. We need to ensure that when we dispose of waste, we dispose them at right sources, and after we ensure that we've cleaned them as much as possible. So that when these wastes have been removed and then we have rainfall, we can actually have free flow of waters and relatively clean waters into these open waters like lagoons and rivers. Mind you, we are not the only occupants of these systems. We have fishes in these rivers. We have crabs in these rivers, which indirectly we also depend on for food. And so when they're contaminated, we are also getting some of these toxins that we're talking about. So that's my contribution for today.
Thank you very much, Doc. Next, we are meeting 3 other distinguished young researchers and scientists in different fields. Let's find out how they tie their areas of research in with what Dr. Sugbami says are pollutants we can do without. Let's meet our guests. Hello.
Hi.
Right. So next to me, we have Edna Pansa. She's a fisheries research scientist. In the middle, we have Harry Atigo, a research scientist in immunology and infectious diseases. Now, let me start with you, Edna. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that all water bodies on Earth gravitate towards the ocean. Should we be worried that we are polluting inland water sources, which invariably will find their way into oceans and marine sources?
Yes, we should be worried. We are not safe. Just as Dr. had presented to us, the carrying capacity of land with our pollutants end up in our water body. Now, when it comes to the atmosphere, we are pumping daily into the atmosphere is also getting out of hand. Now, scientists have seen that the oceans are a very good sink that absorbs a lot of these carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. So, invariably, if we didn't have the oceans, then global warming would have been at a very high intensity than we are experiencing now. So all along, scientists have been happy the oceans are absorbing a lot of carbon dioxide. But now, the current capacity is too much, it's absorbing too much of it, and then the oceans are becoming acidic. Now, to explain it in layman's terms so we all understand, the whole term is called ocean acidification. But invariably, it's just about carbon dioxide mixing with water, and then we end up getting more H plus hydrogen ions.
Has it got anything to do with the level of saltiness? Right.
It just has to do with hydrogen ions. So the pH level of the water is increasing, and then hence the acidity is increasing. Now this makes carbonate saturation, calcium carbonate becomes less because there's a whole lot of chemical reactions that take place in the water. Okay, so at the end of the day, the main effect we are getting from this is we have less calcium carbonate for the shell-forming organisms. Now the organisms, these tiny organisms like the phytoplankton, zooplankton, these are food for our fishes. Now they use calcium carbonate to make their shells, and that keeps them alive. Now here is the case, they are not getting enough calcium carbonate to make their shells. So they are not a lot now in the system. So the fish is also not getting their food. So at the end of the day, it's a whole
Wow.
The whole food is being mixed up. Now when it comes to the fish itself, studies and research have shown that some of the fishes are losing their sense of direction. Exactly. So some of them can't find where they are supposed to go. It's affecting their reproduction. And so if the fish are not reproducing, then how then do we get more fish? Some of them are becoming more vulnerable to predators because they can't find their way. So they can't hide from predators. They see predators and they think it's a prey for them. So they go towards it instead of moving away from it.
Okay, let's step out of the lab just a second. So predator, prey. We are talking about the blue man and killer.
Exactly.
One is going to eat the other.
One is going to eat the other. So the predator is going to eat the prey.
I see.
Yes.
And the prey has lost its sense of direction.
Exactly.
Making it more vulnerable.
More vulnerable. So
Wow.
it tends to go towards the predator who is going to eat it, thinking it is rather something it can eat.
Let me just step from you a bit and talk about vulnerability. You are into immunology and infectious diseases, Dorothea. Which groups of people are most vulnerable to the effects of man's unchecked, if you like, activities?
The effect of man on.
For instance, Edna has just been explaining that because we are beating the carrying capacity of the oceans, its ability to absorb carbon dioxide is now becoming negative, affecting calcium that is available for cell formation and threatening the food chain. And I guess when seafood chain is affected, it will have an impact on man. And I'm wondering which categories of men will be most affected? Men, women, children, Caucasians, Negroids,
Okay. Thank you very much, Francis. So, what we have mentioned so far is just telling us that man is having a lot of effect on our environment. And although we are all not safe, some people are more vulnerable than others. And this category of people are also as children and mainly pregnant women. The reason I'll put this is that we realize that coming from my point of view as an immunologist, we realize that our body has its own way of maintaining our active, keeping us healthy, keeping us safe. But then if it becomes too much, our body cannot handle it. So children, say generally under 5, will have their immune system still boosted, so they might not be able to handle some of these effects as an adult would. The same thing when it comes to pregnant women. As soon as a pregnant woman becomes pregnant, her immune system is a bit lowered. The reason it's a bit lowered is that anytime you are affected by a pathogen, that is a foreign substance, so our immune system will try to expel it.
You mean the fetus is?
It's seen as foreign.
Wow.
So before our body can accept, a woman's body can accept pregnancy, the immune system has to be lowered so that it won't reject the fetus. So these are groups of people that are very vulnerable, and as such, if we are going to take any precaution, they are the people that should be targeted first.
Let me bring you into the picture, Harry. Sometime last year, a civic organization in Ghana broached the subject of medical waste. They were worried that we may not be disposing of medical waste properly, and that we were forming a vicious cycle that will come to harm us eventually. Share your thoughts on how the disposal of used syringes, for instance, expired medication, which has not been disposed of properly, can come back sometime to affect our health.
Okay, thank you very much, Francis. So I would want to, first of all, give us a clearer understanding of what biomedical waste is.
Sure.
So biomedical waste is largely waste that is generated from medical laboratories or other laboratories that have direct relationship working with samples. Now, with regards to your question, day in, day out, when you move into a medical laboratory, you see them working on samples with regards to, and these samples are largely fluid samples, particularly blood. And we know blood is a reservoir, it contains a lot of infection. We see it as a first line of infection within the body. So when we process samples within the lab, and after a day's work, you have to discharge it, there are certain techniques or processes you need to pass through in order to make the blood safe before you dispose them of. Importantly, or most of them are not, we have these things taking place, but some way, somehow, microorganisms or pathogens or disease-causing organisms that are found within the blood find themselves into the environment from these disinfected blood samples that were worked on within the lab. So now the next point of contact is where you find this of this waste is water bodies. Now when they get into the water bodies, they would of course travel into the sink, which is the ocean or any water body that is available, and these are sources of drinking water to a number of community folks. Now when it gets in there, what is going to happen is that these people will get and even eat resources that are coming out of these water bodies. Now most of these organisms that we find in the sea serve as reservoirs to most microorganisms. Now when it happens like that, we go consuming this and it leads to the human getting infections.
It
So
isn't one off, or it's over a repeated consumption of one particular.
no, just a consumption of an infected say fish which is containing a microorganism will lead to a possible infection. So when you have continuous
Can I step away from you and come back in a minute? Now, once immunity got anything, to do with it. So the fish might be infected, but doesn't necessarily mean that if I consume that fish, I would be infected when my immunity was higher, for instance.
Yeah, so yeah, it depends on your immunity. That is very well said, of clearing the pathogen, but it's not all pathogens that can be cleared. Sometimes you need certain interventions before these pathogens can be cleared from your system.
Wow. Edna, look, until recently we were disposing of untreated fecal matter directly into the sea. And people who live along the shores will tell you that, hey, we've done it since General MacArthur came to town. We've not died. You can't be right in what you are saying you should sex. Here we are being told that biomedical waste, if not properly treated and disposed of, is a threat to us. Tie this in with fish sources, human consumption of it, and whether or not what is there's a clear and present danger with the picture is.
Thank you. Yes, there is some danger because a lot of research that we have done in our labs, looking at the fish as a whole, the kind of heavy metals, for instance, that we get into our water bodies. You find some of them still harbored in the fish.
What is heavy metal?
Heavy metals like mercury. When you talk about the galamsey issues that we are having, destroy the land, these metals, some of these chemicals seep into the water body. The fish, it gets also into the fish. Apparently, they are still harbored in the tissues of the fish, which is passed on to the human. So we are not safe. It's very true what he says about these medical waste that just seeps into our water bodies. Yes, the water body is full of fish, so it will take it. People would say, yes, we've eaten all these things since time immemorial, it's done nothing. But now it's becoming more than it was in the past. So like I mentioned earlier on, the current capacity. So it's becoming more than it can contain, or the water bodies can contain. So the effect will still spill over and then come back to man.
Now, so how do you reckon, say, that we deal with this problem? My understanding is that there are regulatory bodies that license laboratories and give you protocols to follow.
Okay.
Now, if that is not being done, and the common man has not the capacity, nor the tools needed to detect that something is being done wrong, then we are seriously on that track. What would you recommend to be the way?
So I think the first line of recommendation would be to maybe properly cook your food that you're going to eat, that you usually will get from these sources, especially foods that you are getting from water bodies. As you are saying, some of these fishes serve as reservoirs to most of these microorganisms. So the most important thing will be to cook them. And if it is vegetables or other fruits that you are getting from the land, it's very good to clean them very well before you eat, because they are good sources. Yeah, so if it's those foods that you're supposed to cook, you cook them very well, because heat is it's a way of denaturing and trying to deactivate or possibly stop the action of most microorganisms. So it's very good you use that in trying to kill most of these microorganisms. So
How much heat is sufficient?
yeah, so I think this is not about the amount of heat that is fixed, but you need you just need to apply the appropriate heat that you use in cooking food within your home to get the microorganisms in. Of course, when you move into a lab, when we are trying as much as possible to prevent contamination and infection of things within the lab, we use a specific amount of heat depending on what kind of microorganisms we're working with. But when you are moving into a different environment, you would equally would need to use the necessary environment or rules that work within that place to work with, in order not to prevent loss of nutrients and others. In as much as we want to kill microbes, you
You
want
should
to
not do it at the expense
of the nutrients.
So, you've talked about using heat. What else would you recommend?
Yeah, so for the use of heat is the first line when we are trying to kill microbes within the lab and then even in the home, because you could transfer the use of that within the home setting. But largely, when we are trying to prevent or decontaminate biomedical waste within the lab, there are several other things that we do. We use other chemical preparations to stop the actions of microorganisms. We use heat. We sometimes use irradiation as a means of stopping these microorganisms from growing and possibly causing infections. Yeah.
Right. Now, there's a concern that with the reduced immune systems in children and pregnant women, what should caregivers in particular look out for? So the person's immunity is compromised. What are the issues? Should the person be taking something to boost it up? Abstain from certain foods, eat more of some types of foods? What?
Thank you very much. This is a very interesting question. Pregnant women are very, very vulnerable. And I think one thing we don't even do in Ghana is that there's something called pre-pregnancy counseling. Even before you become pregnant, ideally you have to consult and make sure your body and your systems are right before you become pregnant. But I think wholesale we don't do that. So,
Well, I'm confused with this. Are you saying that we ought to know when we are getting pregnant?
yes, you have to know that I want to be pregnant at this time. You consult a physician. I want to be pregnant at this time. Is my body ready to take it?
I see.
That is very, very important. So once you know that you think your body is ready, you've been checked, your history and everything has been checked, then you can go ahead and be pregnant. Your body should accept it. Once you've accepted your pregnancy, now your body has to adapt to this pregnancy. There's a component that has to be. So pregnancy, the period of pregnancy is very, very delicate. And I'm not going to advise anyone here, take this or take that. That will depend on the health personnel or your midwife or doctor who is taking care of you. They know your body specifically and know what will suit you. So every pregnancy, every woman is different and every pregnancy is different. So they should take note of that and seek appropriate care. That's what I would tell them.
Right.
I can't advise that you should take this or take this food or not take that food.
Right. Let's wrap this up. So your concern is with ocean acidification. It is not stopping, is it? And what would you recommend going forward we do to ensure that the negative consequences we began to experience is curtailed?
Okay, thank you. Going forward, the main thing globally, generally, we are all working at reducing carbon dioxide emissions. That is one, because it's the water body is affected by the external sources and then the internal source. The internal with the climate change and all that. If we can't reduce our emissions, the oceans will keep absorbing, and then we'll still see these effects. Now, the other thing too is to control the external. That has to do with the pollution, like Dr. mentioned earlier on, the overfishing and the use of destructive mechanisms. Our fishermen realize that they are not getting enough fish, and so they end up using a lot of destructive mechanisms, light fishing, dynamite, and all that, just to take the little that they can get that is left in the sea. But that is not right. If we are looking at conserving the fish resources, then we have to manage it properly by using the right fishing methods, by using the right fishing methods, one, reducing the effort, looking at alternative jobs, alternative livelihoods, going into aquaculture, fish farming. One problem we are having is our fishermen say fishing is hunting for them. They have done it since time immemorial. They can't stop and go and farm fish. They see fish farming as you are now going to put fish as a seed and wait for it. They can't do that. But we have to educate them to take it up, because yes, the resources are dwindling, but effective management would also help curtail the issue.
Right. Now, Harry, a viewer is interested to find out whether there's a regulation on waste management. Yours is specifically in the area of medical waste.
Yeah.
Would you happen to know whether there's any regime of regulations?
Yeah, of course.
Do's and don'ts?
Yeah, thank you very much, Francis. I must say that there are regulations regarding waste management within every laboratory and as such medical laboratories. There are protocols for how to dispose liquid waste, solid waste that are generated in the lab on a daily basis. And they are most often enforced, but what we see nowadays are that we have quackery in the system. We have people who do not have the expertise setting up laboratories here and there. So these are people you most of the time see not following these protocols and observing strictly to quality management systems within the laboratory regarding waste. So the way forward will be that we should, of course, ensure that regulatory bodies see to the checks on these private laboratories that are sprouting up and ensuring that even if they are operating, the needed skill sets or people with the right skill sets operate these laboratories. And also within facilities or hospital settings that are already having these protocols, there should be a quality control system within the lab that is enforcing and ensuring that the medical waste that are generated on a daily basis are disposed of effectively.
Right, so let's wrap this up. We don't often see you in the public space. Is there anything in particular you like to say to media men, as myself, who are more interested in political or sensational news headlines?
I'm surprised to say you don't normally see us. We are always there. And we are very approachable. Anytime you come to us, we are ready to answer your questions. But we want to give the exact and the truth. And we want to make sure that what we are giving out is what has been tested before we come out with it. So we are always available for us, you to come, and then we share, just as we are doing today, sharing what we do to the public. Anybody can consult us, and then we'll share what is it.
On that note, I want to thank you very much for taking time off your busy schedules to share insights into what you've been doing for laboratories. And for those of you who have joined us via the internet, as the manufacturers say in the buying and selling industry, buyer beware. There are real dangers, and it is only when you have acquired the knowledge that helps you to sidestep the many pitfalls that you can live a healthy and safe life. Thank you. Hopefully we'll come back sometime in the future.